Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of True Talks for Coaches, a masterclass series, especially around life coaching by iChars. This is Mamta here, Director, iChars Support Foundation, and we have with us Nitin Shah, Director and Founder, iChars and iChars Support Foundation, to answer our questions. Welcome, Nitin.
Thank you, Mamta. How are you?
I'm good, and welcome everyone who has joined us on Zoom as well as live on Facebook. Please feel free to ask any questions at any point of time around life coaching, today's episode, and so on, whenever you feel like. So, Nitin, last episode we spoke about what is life coaching, how is it different from therapy, when should a person visit a coach, what all can a coach help with, and so on. Now, I have a couple of other questions. Today's episode is about coaching specializations. But before that, how is coaching different from mentoring? And how is coaching different from training?
Okay. So, in fact, these are probably two questions that we had received last time
Yes,
in one of the other chats, which we had not answered. So, let's begin by answering them.
right.
You asked what is the difference between coaching and mentoring, right?
Mentoring first, yeah.
Okay. So, in general, with mentoring, people come to a mentor or go to a mentor for their expertise, which
Correct,
means you need to be an expert in an area where you
right,
would like to mentor someone,
correct,
right? But for a coach, the coach doesn't have to be an expert in a particular area. The coach's expertise is in asking questions to help you get more clarity
right,
about what is happening in your life right now, right? So, for
correct.
example, let's say you are someone who wants to start a business
Hmm,
and you know someone who's running a similar business.
correct,
You go to them for guidance, for support, and for being able to help you with specific strategies that maybe they have followed.
correct,
Here you're looking for a mentor.
right,
So obviously the mentor needs to have a domain knowledge expertise before they can guide you,
right, absolutely.
right? But if you're going to a coach, then the work of a coach is not to give you advice or suggestions in terms of what you can do. The
Right,
work of the coach would be to ask you the right set of questions so that whatever thoughts you have in your mind,
yeah,
whatever strategies you have in your mind,
hmm,
it can be structured more effectively so that you can apply them,
right,
right? Also, the coach will probably ask you questions in a way in which you are able to think of more options than what you had thought of earlier.
right,
But the expertise, the knowledge, the information actually comes from you as a coachee.
perfect,
The coach is simply there to be able to help you uh, present what you have in your mind in a more structured way. And
correct,
then obviously to be able to help you stick to that
right,
in a way in which you're able to work towards the goal that you want to work towards.
perfect, right.
Okay? So I hope this is clear for all of us. And before I go ahead, because we also have people on Zoom today, if
Yes.
any of you have any questions about this aspect, then you can please unmute yourself and ask us the question so that I can clarify it before we go ahead with respect to mentoring and coaching.
Right,
And you can also ask us the question in the chat box if you would like.
right. Nitin, there is one question. Although I think we'll talk about it later, but I'll still bring it to your attention. Pari is asking, is transformative coach the
So is transformative coach the same? So I'll come to that question in some time, Pari, because when we talk about types of coaching, I
yes,
would answer that question over there. But before I reach there, I wanted to know whether this distinction between mentorship and coaching is clear for all of you or not.
right. So
And
it'll
in
be
the
great if everyone who's watching us can, either drop a yes or something so that we know that you've got it. Or if you have a question, please ask that question. Okay. All right.
okay, so at least here on the uh,
Yes.
Zoom bit, we are getting the messages that it's clear.
Right.
Perfect. Uh, let's move to the next bit, which you asked, which was coaching and training,
Training. Yes.
right? So, Mamta, with training, again, the idea is so to a large extent, trainer is actually playing the role of both a mentor and a coach.
Okay.
Okay. depending upon what training program you're attending,
Right.
in most training programs, the trainer still is supposed to give you certain information, certain knowledge that you may not have to begin with.
Correct.
Right? Let's say you're attending a training program on, let's say on Microsoft Office.
Right.
Right? So obviously the trainer would know certain things about Office that you don't know, and they're
Correct.
going to impart that information to you.
Correct.
Similarly, if you're attending a more behavioral training program, let's say a training program on emotional intelligence or NLP or hypnosis. So obviously the person who's participating, the participant, is not really expected to have intense knowledge about that area. That knowledge has to come from the trainer. So the trainer predominantly still playing the role of imparting knowledge.
Correct.
Right? Having said that, after the trainer has imparted knowledge, once the participants have that information, now the trainer can switch into the role of coach, where the trainer can ask questions to help participants understand how they would apply that information in different areas of their life.
Right.
Right? So as a trainer, you could probably do very well by having both the coaching and the mentoring skills.
Right. Correct.
Right? I hope that's clear for all of us.
Right. I'm getting some yeses on Facebook. So once again, everyone, just drop a yes. Okay. All right. Right. So Nitin, from what you said, then it makes a lot of sense, I think, for both trainers and mentors to also get trained in life coaching models and processes.
It does, because, okay, so remember when we spoke about life coaching last time, we said that life coaching is basically nothing but helping a coachee define where they are,
Right.
where they want to be,
Correct.
right? And then help them make that transition from where they are to where they want to be.
Absolutely.
In a way, a mentor or a trainer also would attempt to do that. The only difference is that the trainer and the mentor is also going to give them more knowledge, more information that they may not have had earlier.
Right.
Right? But
Right.
even after you give them that information, one, whether they can apply their mind to use that information effectively. And second, to actually ensure that they apply that information effectively.
Right.
Is where the coaching skills would come in.
Yes.
Right? So in my understanding, a mentor and a trainer need coaching skills. A coach doesn't need a mentorship or a training skill.
Right. Exactly. Perfect. That makes sense. All right. So while people are asking questions, what about, there are different types of coaching. So for example, somebody just asked about transformative coach, and, it seems there are specific specializations in coaching. So what are they and how do they differ from each other?
Okay. So before I answer that, Mamta, let's just quickly say hi to everyone who is there, both on Facebook and on Zoom right now.
Okay.
So I would like to say hi to all of you. Thank you for joining in. And remember, you are free to ask whatever questions you would like to ask, and I'll be more than happy to take up those questions and answer those questions during the live.
Right.
Now, coming to your question.
Yeah.
Right? You asked that what are the different types of coaching?
Yes.
So, Mamta, different types of coaching. So this question can actually be answered in two ways. One is from the point of view of coaching models. You know how there are different coaching models that are used to help people define their present problem and define their outcome.
Right.
So that's one way of defining types of coaching as to which coaching model a coach is using. And second is in terms of specialization. Right? So we have a different episode dedicated altogether to coaching models, and we are going to talk about a lot of coaching models, I think, next week. So I'm going to take up that question there. But as far as coaching specializations are concerned, so there are different types of coaching. There could be normal life coaching, right? Then you have relationship coaching.
Correct.
You can also have entrepreneurship coaching, executive coaching. These are classically what are the known forms of coaching. Now, as an extension of that, a lot of people also call themselves clarity coach, transformative coach. Then you have like passionpreneurs. So you have a lot of these terminologies that are now being used to promote themselves.
Correct.
Right? All of these are different types of coaching. Now, what you have to understand is that there are certain types of coaching which are basically just change of terminology. So for example, whether you call yourself a life coach, transformative coach, clarity coach, it's all the same.
Right.
You're actually doing the same thing. It's just how you want to brand yourself.
Correct.
But when you call yourself a relationship coach, there's a
Hmm.
difference, because as a relationship coach, you need additional information that a classical life coach would not have,
Right.
right? Because in a way, a relationship coach would partially
Hmm.
also be playing the role of a mentor,
Yes.
right? And why do I say this? Let's say you have a client who comes to you for a coaching session. They are having relationship issues.
Hmm.
Now, when you're working with that coachee, it's not just about themselves, like it's there in life coaching, right? It's also about their ability to understand their partner, your
Hmm.
ability to understand the conflict that exists between the two partners,
Correct.
right? And to be able to help the coachee get clarity about where are these sources of conflict coming from. Many a
Correct.
times coaches don't really understand how there are different ways in which communication can work. There are different ways in which body can respond to the idea of sex,
Correct.
how people understand money. Now, this is because that's not an information that the coachee has.
Hmm.
While you could still use a classical coaching method where you can ask the client, all right, how would you find out more about relationships?
Hmm.
And they can say, I would read books, I would do relationship courses, and
Right.
then you can take it back into classical coaching. So that's one way of doing it. But
Correct.
in most cases, when clients are visiting a specialization in terms of coach, right, like a relationship coach, they
Hmm.
expect you to be able to help them understand certain things about relationship that they don't know.
Right.
And that's the reason why that specialization is unique, because you need to have that information that a standard life coach may not have.
Okay.
Okay. And again, now with relationship coaching, there could be people who can do they can promote themselves as pre-marriage coaches, post-marriage coaches, divorce coaches. So there, the moment you have the information base about coaching, the
Yes.
rest three are simply how you are trying to promote yourself and how you're trying to brand yourself.
Right.
Right. I
Right.
hope this answers the question for relationship coaching. I'll also talk about other types of coaching, but I
Right.
just wanted to check, is this clear for relationship coaching with you?
Yes, it is. And I would like everyone who's watching also to let us know if this is clear, the distinction. Pari is saying, okay, to sum it up, it's like the word coach has many synonyms, but line of work would be the same unless you are specific about your coaching audience.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So I'm again getting some yeses. Perfect. Right.
Perfect. So that was about relationship coaching,
Huh.
right? So obviously, as a relationship coach,
Hmm.
it makes sense to do not just life coaching, but also beyond that, certain courses on relationship, which will help you get deeper understanding of what relationship is,
Okay.
right? Uh, you could start by reading certain books on relationships, but I'm personally more in favor of attending a training program rather than just reading books, because the
Right.
training program would probably also help you practice those specific information that you've got in a more structured way. A book would give you the information, but you still would have to find your own ways of being able to make use of that.
Right. Right. So Nitin, it's not just additional know-how, but also additional competencies, is it? When you want to specialize in, let's say, relationships, for example.
So the only thing is, how would you mix the
Hmm.
information that you have, that
Hmm.
you are imparting to client,
Hmm.
uh, how do you impart that information neutrally, and
Right.
yet how do you allow the client to make the decision? So at times with life coaching, that's not a problem, because you are not imparting any information from your side any which ways. So it's
Correct.
like, you know, that you're only in that one, you're only wearing that one cap or one
Correct.
hat,
Right.
right? So you can completely be in that one zone all throughout during the coaching session
Yes.
when it comes to life coaching and the synonyms for that. But when you're
Right.
talking about relationship coaching or parental coaching, because you're also giving them information, you have to kind of change your hat. You have to go from a person who's giving information, but giving it neutrally, so that you don't, so that the client has all all types of information available. It's not that you're biasing them by giving only incomplete information. You're giving them neutral information with respect to all areas,
Right.
right? and then you're allowing them to decide how they want to proceed. So for example, as a relationship coach, I can't really make a decision whether the client wants to be in a relationship or move out of the relationship. That decision only of the client. In fact, I can't even tell the client that there are pros and cons of being in and out of the relationship. I can ask the client the questions that what are the pros of being in this relationship, what are the cons of being in this relationship. True. Having said that, as a relationship coach, I can help the client understand that there are different kinds of partners, and at times different partners are looking for different things from the relationship. Now I can ask questions to the coachee to understand what is it that they are looking for in the relationship and how it's conflicting from what their partners are looking for in the relationship.
Right.
So that the fact that you have to change your hats when you are working with clients in the same session is an additional competency that you require when you're specializing in one of these areas.
Right, right, right. For example, you may need the skill to be able to bring both partners to a common ground.
Which is true. So especially in relationship coaching where both people are coming to you for coaching sessions.
Right.
Right. It's not just about helping one partner understand their point of view or understand what their outcomes are. Eventually, you will have to work towards either being able to create what we call as a common minimum program.
Right.
Right. Where both partners can agree, or eventually help the partners realize or recognize that both of them are looking for something completely different, which means either you need to have the skill to help them agree to disagree. Or if they decide to move away from each other, then even that moving away can happen more amicably.
Yeah. Correct. Fair enough. Okay. So once again, everyone who's watching us, if you have any questions so far, please feel free to ask us now or at any point in the session. Right.
Okay. So this was about relationship coaching, right? Again, with parental coaching, you need additional information. Because especially with parental coaching, in fact, in relationship coaching, you could probably still get away by being a standard life coach and using coaching principles. But with parental coaching, because parents come up with some really incredible ideas of how they want to bring up their children, that additional information is very, very crucial. Especially how child develops at different age groups and how the parents' conversation and what parents are expecting from the child can make a lot of difference. So to that extent, again, parental coaching is a combination of coaching and mentorship.
Correct.
And if you're going to work with special kids or with special education, then probably it's not even going to fall within the realm of coaching. Ideally, it should fall within the realm of therapy.
Correct. True.
Right. Then when we talk about executive coaching, now in executive coaching, the skill sets that you require are slightly different. So the thing with executive coaching is, so in standard coaching, the coachee comes to you. They are the ones telling you the objectives and you're working with them.
Correct.
Right. In executive coaching, at times it's the company that is hiring you. So the company has its own set of objectives that they want you to fulfill as a coach with the executive.
Correct.
And the executive may have their own set of objectives.
Right.
So one, to be able to have a conversation with the organization to clearly understand their objectives. To be able to create an alignment between the executive's objective and the company's objective.
Correct.
Right. At times, you will also have to have a conversation with the company to ensure that the company is willing to make certain tweak in their policy so that the entire thing can work more effectively.
Correct.
Right. So there you are working with the coach executive as a coach, but with the company probably as a consultant, because you also want to give that that feedback to the company in terms of what they can do to improve the entire thing better.
Right.
Right. So that way, as an executive coach, that's the additional skill that you require. Also being able to have the right set of terminologies that you will use with companies, because at times the jargons that company officials want to use or HR professionals want to use are slightly different from what just a normal client will use with you.
Correct.
Right. And at times whether you get a coaching assignment or not with the company may also depend upon whether you're comfortable using those jargons.
Correct.
So
Correct.
Awareness of those jargons would probably be an additional information that you would require that a standard life coach may not require.
Yes.
right? And then you have business coaches.
Hmm.
Uh, Business coaches would generally work with business houses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? For example, we have one of our students who would work with these major business houses, and his objective was very simple, that whenever there is a family where there are brothers
Hmm.
or sisters or brothers and sisters
Hmm.
who after the head have a potential to have a conflict,
Hmm.
he would only work with those people to ensure that the family members stay together when the business has to thrive. And if the family members for whatever reason are not able to stand each other, then how to create that plan of action, or how to help them create the plan of action so that the separation can be amicable and it works to the overall advantage of the business.
That's a very specific niche.
Yeah, very specific niche. And when I spoke to him, he actually told me I only have 4 clients and I'm not even planning to take more clients, because those 4 clients keep me occupied and they also ensure that I'm earning as much as I need to be able to, well,
Because they must have been like big business houses or industrial houses, right?
correct. So
That.
there, to actually be able to understand
Hmm.
how you would work with those family dynamics
Hmm.
play a very important role,
Right.
right? And your skill as a coach also is not just as a coach but as someone who can negotiate between the partners
Yeah.
or
So
between the
that
members.
would be an additional competency or skill that you need, right?
Correct.
Perfect. Perfect. Nitin, Pari has a question. Can we have multiple titles like life coach, therapist, relationship coach to display? She says.
You can, but Pari, I'm going to answer that question probably in another 5-10 minutes. I think because we are going to touch upon niche and importance of niche when it comes to specialization. So
Correct.
I would take that up in probably 5 or 10 minutes, if not soon.
Okay.
Right now, coming to the original question that Pari asked, which was about transformative coach and life coach.
Yes.
Right now, these terminologies, transformative coach, life coach, uh, clarity coach, passionpreneurs. Can you think of more names like this? Mind managers, mind coaches,
I
right?
also know of happiness engineers.
Happiness engineers. These are like different terminologies being used because people want to then distinguish themselves from other people,
Yeah.
right? So then in that case, it's more or less, there is no additional skill set that you require. It's just how you're planning to brand yourself. Spiritual coaches is another one. Now, when it comes to spiritual coaches, so the difference between a normal coach and a spiritual coach would be that a normal coach may not necessarily get into conversations with you uh, about metaphysical aspects, right? A spiritual coach may need to be open to the idea of getting into discussions about metaphysical aspects of existence, right? Also, with all other coaching, the outcome is very, very specific. It's very observable. Malab, if there is one thing that separates classical therapy from coaching is this, that in therapy, the focus is generally on what's happening inside you, what is the feeling that you are experiencing in your life and so on, right? But coaching is very, very uh, end result driven. You want the end result, which is highly objective, highly observable. And that's also the reason why coaches get paid more than therapists many a times.
Right. Right. What about health coaches, Nitin?
So then, Mamta, it depends upon what kind of health coach you're looking at. For example, if you're looking at a generic wellness coach or a health coach, again, a life coach could probably do that, right? The only thing is, life coach would probably then be working with certain other people who would be specialists in that area. So, for example, if I'm a life coach and I want to be a wellness coach, then I may also have a colleague of mine who's a dietitian, a colleague of mine who is into yoga, who is into exercising, and so on. So, what happens is, while I'm a wellness coach, I'm actually going to make use of services of all of these people, where I can guide my client to a dietitian so that the dietitian can give them the diet plan, and then that becomes a part of my coaching sessions with the client. I can refer them to, let's say, a yoga practitioner, and then I ensure that they continue going to the yoga practice regularly. So as a wellness coach, I may incorporate additional things, but there I may be a specialist in that area, so I'm already providing that role of mentorship to the client, or I have other specialists that I'm going to refer the coachee to to get guidance so that they can come back to me and then we can incorporate that guidance as a part of their coaching program.
Perfect. Well explained, Nitin. I think that takes care of a lot of questions that people have when we look at these titles and specializations and so on. And people are so innovative, they keep coming up with. The other day I came across a breakup recovery coach.
Brilliant.
And that was so interesting. So I think, in other words, they are like carving that niche where they're saying that within relationship coaching, I help people overcome the challenges when they go through when they come out of a relationship.
True.
Right? So that was,
so that's like picking a real nice niche for themselves.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So, which means then for these areas where I need additional know-how and maybe even skills and competencies, then I may need to go for some additional training after I train as a coach or along with my coach training.
Correct. So it's useful to go for those trainings. Right. Then while we are talking about types of coaching in terms of niches, I think someone has already asked a question about emotional intelligence coach, right? So so one is niche, and then there are additional types of coaching programs now that are there. So there's an emotional intelligence coaching. Then you may have an NLP coach, like we call it a cognitive hypnotic coach now, right? So now these coaching these coaching specializations are more based on what are the additional what should I say? What are the additional knowledge base that you have as a practitioner, as a coach, and what are the things that you're going to focus on in your coaching program? So classically, for example, I'm talking classically like when coaching started and so on. So classically, a coach would not really focus on emotional intelligence and so on. The coach will help you set up your plan of action and act as a responsibility partner, accountability partner to ensure that you act on those plan of actions, right? Somewhere down the line, people started realizing that an awareness of how people are feeling, right? Self-awareness can be very useful when it comes to applying plan of actions.
Correct.
And that's predominantly the focus of emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence basically has 4 or 5 different aspects to it, depending upon which school of thought that you're following, right? But the bottom line becomes this: my awareness about myself and my emotions, my awareness about other people and their emotions, right? And the regards that I have for myself and others.
Correct.
Right? Now, if you logically think of it, any advanced coaching or any advanced coach would actually work with emotions.
Okay.
Right? Because that's what stops people from achieving their outcome.
True.
Right? Let's look at it this way. Let's say a client comes and tells you that I want to make more money in my business.
Correct.
And they realize one of the ways of making more money is by doing advertisements on social media. Right? And to back those advertisements up, they also need to create credibility. So they probably need to write some articles and do certain live videos to be able to create that credibility.
Yep.
Now you have helped them create a plan of action.
Yes.
Now, in that plan of action, the action that they need to do is go live. But they say, I feel exhausted with the idea of going live, or I feel nervous with the idea of going live. Right? Now, as a coach, if you try to push them to go live, they may go live, but they are not confident enough. So the chances that they would probably have a problem on the live, or they would start feeling nervous while they are doing the live, will be very high, which actually has a potential to create a bigger problem.
Correct.
So as a coach, wouldn't you ideally want to help the client also deal with that nervousness so that they're already confident with the idea of going for a live?
Absolutely makes total sense. Yeah.
Right. Now, in classical coaching, as I mentioned, that's not something which is addressed. In emotional intelligence coaching, with most of the emotional intelligence coaching coaches that I've spoken to, they will help the person become aware. So there's a lot of emphasis on mindfulness. And the hope is that once the client has the mindfulness, the awareness of the sensations in the body will make them more objective, and they would be able to go online feeling better.
Okay.
Now, it can work with certain clients.
Yes.
It may not work with certain clients, because at times awareness can also create a problem. People become hyper anxious, hyper mindful of the sensations they're feeling.
Right.
Right. So you can still use mindfulness and awareness, but that will take a lot longer.
Right.
Now that's where you have people who are NLP coaches, who are cognitive hypnotic coaches. So the idea with NLP coaching and cognitive hypnotic coaching is this, that you are not just focusing on awareness. You're not just focusing on emotional intelligence at an awareness level. There are specific set of techniques that you learn, which can literally help people change their emotional state.
And more naturally, right? And
more effortlessly, which means you're literally, for the lack of any other word, you're literally conditioning the client. So right now, the thought of going live makes them nervous. You're literally reconditioning them, rewiring them. You can use whatever term you want to use, in a way in which when they think about going live the next time, they automatically feel confident. Now, this classical coaching cannot really help you do. The only two coaching programs that I've noticed actually enable you to develop this skill,
correct,
is an NLP coaching program, or the program that we conduct, which is cognitive hypnotic coaching.
Correct.
Right. Now, the difference between NLP coaching and cognitive hypnotic coaching would then be that NLP coaching just takes techniques from NLP.
Yes.
Right. And a very good technique is anchoring. Right. For example, right. What we do is we incorporate hypnosis with NLP. And the reason why we do that is most NLP change processes are based in hypnosis. Now, when you do a standard NLP coaching program, in the program, you are learning the techniques. But the actual know-how of why the technique works is generally not provided to you, because that know-how depends on hypnosis. Right? And that's the reason why we focus on hypnosis so much, because the idea is that if you understand hypnosis, understanding any other change process becomes a lot more easier. So you could incorporate any other coaching modality that you have done with what we are doing to actually make what you were earlier doing more powerful. Right. Right. And that's the distinction. My personal suggestion is, if you are looking at self-help, standard NLP programs are brilliant. Then our programs are probably an overkill. But if you are looking at becoming a practitioner, where you want to work with other people, yes, then the programs that we conduct are very comprehensive. Then probably there's nothing better than that you will get. Okay, but then again, I may be a bit biased towards our programs. I'm the one who kind of created it. So right. So that's. I hope, I think anything and everything had asked that question about emotional intelligence. So I hope you have got the answer to that question. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to ask, and I would be more than happy to answer that question. Also, he has asked if any skills and competencies needed for emotional intelligence coach. You just need to know that an additional source of information which you can use with clients. So, for example, you need to understand mindfulness. You need to understand what self-awareness is. What are the techniques that you can use with your clients so that they can become self-aware. In emotional intelligence coaching, you will also focus on asking clients or coaches questions about what their emotions are. Correct. Right. In fact, EI coaching is also a coaching model that I will talk about in probably the next episode. Right. Where you start with emotions, you end with emotions, and between you do the entire coaching process. Right. Right. So as an emotional intelligence coach, you may also probably want to know about what that EI coaching model is. Correct. Right. Nitin, Pari has another question in the same context. Do coaching methods and techniques expire too? Or how can a coach keep oneself updated about advanced methods? Well, webinars that we are doing is one example of keeping yourself updated with advanced methods. Second is, so see, it actually depends upon the institute that you're getting your coach training from. Now, what I mean by that is, so let me put it this way. There are certain coaching institutes that will train you in a way in which they've trained you. They've done the initial bit, right? And then eventually, they would leave it to you. Now you have to take care of how you want to proceed from there. And there are certain coaching institutes that will provide you with a lot of support post you have attended the program. right? So there could be webinars that they may be organizing. Some of them may be offering you certain online modules to keep you updated. For example, the way we work, we have both pre-level online modules, post-level online modules, which means whenever we are updating our curriculum, and we update our curriculum constantly with respect to what's happening in the field of coaching from a competency point of view, right? And also from the models point of view. So those models are updated in the online module to ensure that all our past participants are aware of them.
Right.
So that they are always up to date with what we are doing. We do a lot of follow-up webinars and a lot of follow-up interactions with our participants and with people who may not be our participants also, to keep them updated with what's happening. And I'm sure there are other coaching institutes who do something similar. So my suggestion for all of you, when you're looking at becoming a coach practitioner, do a coaching program with an institute that offers you the kind of support, because it's not just about you attending a program and getting a certificate. Your actual coaching competency start after that, and that support is what is extremely important.
Right. Perfect. Okay. Right. I think that he has a he or she, they have a follow-up question. They're saying that I'm a doctorate in EI and would like to become an EI coach. That's why I asked this question.
So I don't know your name, anything and everything. So I'm just going to use the title anything and everything. If you have a doctorate in EI and if you already know the processes, then probably doing a standard life coaching certification could be good enough. Again, if so, Dr. Gayatri. So and if you were to obviously ask me, then Dr. Gayatri, I'm a bit biased towards the programs that we conduct because we incorporate a lot of these things.
Yep.
And the application of this extensively. But I'm sure if you've done a doctorate in EI and if you do any decent life coaching certification program, that should enable you to practice with practice as an EI coach. My suggestion, just search on EI coaching model. There's a specific coaching model that you can use, which will also then help you use that as a structure to work with your clients or your coaches.
Correct.
I hope that answers your question.
Right. So I think while Nitin has explained it really clearly, if you have any questions, then feel free to ask. So Nitin, now that we've talked about so many specializations, that brings me to how important it is to identify a niche, and is there a certain benefit to calling myself a clarity coach or a transformative coach compared to just calling myself a life coach?
Okay. So that's where branding comes in,
Right.
The idea with branding is you may have a certification or you may have done certain courses.
Right.
You may also have the skills.
Right.
But unless people know you and people remember you,
right,
how would they connect with you?
True.
Right. Now, let's say you are in a particular situation in your life where you're seeking clarity.
Correct.
You're confused.
Right.
And you see, you come across two life coaches.
Right.
One who's calling himself or herself life coach. Another one who calls himself or herself clarity coach.
Correct.
Who do you think you will visit first?
The clarity coach, obviously. That seems pretty straightforward.
Correct. So when you call yourself a life coach, while our feeling is that we are reaching out to a larger audience, the truth is you're not really reaching out to a larger audience, because while the world may be your audience, your audience doesn't really remember you. They don't know where to place you. Right. But the moment you say clarity coach, that word is very clear that, all right, if I'm seeking clarity, I need to visit it. And what that does, it actually really helps you in being able to establish yourself as an authority. Because eventually when you want to establish yourself as an authority, it's not just your certification. You will need to come out and tell people about what you're doing. Right. So this actually also relates to the question that Pari asked, where she had mentioned that what if we can have multiple titles rather than one title?
Yes, yes.
Right. Now, let's say let's say we are meeting each other. Right. And Mamta, I tell you, Mamta, I'm a life coach, I'm a relationship coach, I'm a clarity coach, and I'm also a health and a wellness coach.
Right.
Right. I meet you every week and I say this to you, would you still remember what all do I do?
No.
Right? And if you don't remember what I do, would you be able to recommend anyone to me?
Not really.
If I were to meet you every week and I were to tell you I am a relationship coach.
Yeah. That will stick.
Correct. And the moment it sticks, now whenever you come across a client or across a person,
Yeah.
a friend who has a relationship issue and they're seeking help, wouldn't you quickly be able to refer them to me?
Yeah, absolutely. Because now there's no ambiguity.
Correct. And in the line of work that we are in, there is nothing that works better than referrals.
Yes.
Right? Word of mouth is the biggest way of generating clients. While yes, you want to create videos, you want to create articles so that people can still see the credibility. You can get your initial clients, but eventually your clients in the long run will come from your word of mouth.
Yes.
Now, even when initially you're trying to create credibility, let's say if I were to again tell myself as relationship coach, wellness coach, clarity coach, uh, parental coach. Now, if I want to establish authority in these areas, how much content I need to create?
4 times, 5 times of
Right. So
just
if
yeah.
correct. So every week, if I want to be in front of my audience, let's say I'm first focusing on relationship.
Yeah.
So at least every week I want to write one article, create one video, post a couple of things about relationship.
Yes.
Right. Now I also want to be in front of parenting coach. So I have to repeat all of this for parenting coaching also. I also want to do this with clarity coach. Now I want to create all of this for clarity coach also.
Yes.
So as a coach who wants to establish himself, think of the amount of work that I have to do.
Correct.
Instead, if I were to just look at calling myself a relationship coach, I can do everything around relationship coaching. My videos, my posts, my articles, any live webinar that I attend by other people, all of those are specific to my specialization.
Right.
The chances that it will stick in the minds of people is very, very high.
Correct.
Right? And eventually that's what you're trying to do with branding. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're a relationship coach, you will not take any other coaching session. So your branding is your hook for people to remember you. Right? Now, let's say I have a client who comes to me for relationship coaching because I'm promoting myself as a relationship coach. I work with them, they start getting results and so on. And then eventually in one of the sessions, they tell me, you know what, I'm also feeling very stressed because of my office. I think I need someone who can help me with with getting more clarity in terms of my career. Would you be able to help me? You're not going to say no to them, right? You know how to do it. Right? The idea of branding and using a particular niche is for you to use it as a hook so that people can remember it. Once people remember it and they come to you, then whatever challenge they want to work with, probably you have the skill to work with it, unless it's a different specialization altogether.
Perfect.
Right? So that's how you start with a particular niche, but you have the scope to still work with other things.
Right.
Because that's where word of mouth will happen. And with word of mouth, then your specialization actually becomes irrelevant. Then people come to you because someone has referred them to you.
Right. Nitin, there's another drawback to, being all over the place or being very generalized. So even if somebody is, let's say, able to create 4 times the content, because you're speaking to the same audience, they feel very confused. So on Monday, you're talking about relationships. On Tuesday or Wednesday, you're talking about careers and clarity of purpose. So the audience that you built with first piece of content feels confused and leaves you when you put out the second piece of content. By the time you build the second one, so you keep putting in a lot of effort, which keeps going to waste.
Correct.
Right? Compared to when you're just talking about one thing and you literally become synonymous with that area of work, and that really works well. Right? Perfect. Okay. Another question from Pari. I'm not really sure whether I should ask this. Will it be good to learn conventional therapies like CBT, REBT to reach grander audiences?
So, Pari, it actually all depends. See, eventually, as a coach, if you have done a good coaching program, then the
Right.
program should train you into whatever coaching work you have to do with your client. Right? Any additional knowledge that you have is always useful. That's the reason why we incorporated a lot of these things in our programs, right?
Right.
In the sense that while I'm talking about CBT and I'm saying that you may not need to learn it if you've done a good coaching program. The
Right.
truth is, we have borrowed a lot of CBT processes, restructured them in a way in which it fits into our curriculum.
Correct.
But that's more from the point of view of competency that we are helping you develop, right? To reach broader audience, what you need to do is ideally have a hook that people will remember you by.
Right.
Yes, if you've also got certification and additional things, and that's not only CBT, REBT, it can be TA, it can be Gestalt, it can be any other.
NLP, can be EI, there are like so many.
Correct, there are so many. They actually act as a credential. So कभी-कभी client को देख के ऐसा लगता है कि अच्छा हाँ, this person has studied so much.
Yeah.
Okay. But eventually it will boil down to, as I said, the word of mouth. If you are trained properly and you're able to help people get results, they will happily refer you. And that's one of the advantages of being a coach again as compared to therapist. Generally speaking, people are not comfortable saying that I have a therapist or I have a psychologist that I visit, because there is still a stigma associated to that, right? But
Right.
having a coach is a fashion statement. So people happily say, I have a coach and this is my coach.
Right.
So to that extent, if you're doing good work, that should be good enough. If you feel there are specific competencies that you're lacking, so let's say you've done a standard coaching program, you don't know how to help people restructure their thought. And you feel that maybe doing a CBT program or an REBT program would help me get that skill, then yes, you should develop that skill, because eventually it's about your competence.
Right.
Okay? But if you've done a course with us, then probably you already have that. Then if you're doing a CBT or REBT program, then you are doing it more from a certification point of view.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So if you feel that your audience is such that they look for that certification.
Correct.
Especially for example, if you are a coach who's working extensively with doctors, or you have friends who are psychiatrists.
Yeah.
They may ask you, do you have those certifications?
Correct.
And you can then, having those certifications may be useful. But purely from a skill point of view, if you are looking at it, developing a skill, and if you don't have that skill, please go ahead and do those programs.
Perfect. Perfect. Right. Okay. So if anyone has any questions, please ask us. If you have a comment, a question, an observation. Okay. So Nitin, the ultimate question, how do I zero in on this niche? How do I know which one?
So that's actually a good question, because so with the coaching support groups or therapist support groups that we have been running, we've realized that a lot of practicing coaches are not sure of what their niche should be. And that's one of the biggest struggles that they have, because that's the reason why they're not able to, what should I say, establish themselves as effectively as they would like to.
Yeah.
Correct. So how do you find a niche? I have like a simple principle. First, check what kind of people do you really want to work with. See, when you decided to become a coach, you have decided to become a coach for some reason.
Right.
What propelled you into becoming a coach? If you say that, Nitin, I was one day sitting with a group of kids and I realized that they have a major issue when it comes to clarity and confidence, and I really want to work with those kids. Right. Then probably that's the niche area that you want to pick up. Probably adolescence coaching. Right. So one is, what area interests you? That should be your first criteria. Correct. Second is, what are the people who are around you? So let's say I were to say that, Nitin, I don't have a particular specific choice because I like working with kids. I like working with adolescents. I also like working with people who are very old.
Right.
Okay? So it's not really about what I like. I like working with all of them.
Right.
And as a coach, I also probably have the competencies to work with all of them because the standard competencies are the same.
Right.
Now you want to establish yourself as a coach, right? So where would your initial clients come from?
Friends, family, people I know.
Precisely. So your friends and your family would never really come to you for a session.
Right.
Okay. But they can help you spread the word in their circle.
Right.
Now, whatever is your friends and family into is exactly what their circles are also into.
Correct.
Right. So use that as a way to identify your niche, because that is an audience that you already have access to.
Right.
So let's say if all my friends have their own business, right, or they are entrepreneurs, right? Now, if I have all my friends who are entrepreneurs and they are also in circles where their friends, their colleagues are entrepreneurs, wouldn't it make sense for me to become an entrepreneur coach?
Yes.
Because then I can tell my friends who are entrepreneurs, who can tell their colleagues, and that's how I can help myself spread my word. Right? Now, if most of my friends are entrepreneurs, and if I were to say that I'm going to become a parental coach, and most of the friends around me do not have kids of their own. Right now, they're in their phase where they want to establish themselves in terms of their career, and then after 5-6 years, they want to become parents. And their circle also has these kinds of people. Now, I can't make use of the biggest market that I have, which is my own near and dear ones. Now I have to work extra hard to establish myself in an area where people don't know me at all.
To get even my initial first clients.
Correct. So, because niche is about helping you establish credibility with your initial clients. One is check what is your interest area. Second is check what around you is the niche that is already accessible. Start with that niche. Okay. And third, obviously, what is it that people are willing to pay for? And what are your expenses that you want to recover?
Correct.
That's also how your pricing strategies goes. So the way it works is, first, check what is your level of area of interest. Second, in that area of interest, do you have people around you in your near and dear ones? Again, I'm not asking you to ask them to come for a session, but even their circle would have people like them, right? So check whether you have people around you who have similar set of challenges that you are interested in working with. If yes, how much money are they willing to pay if they were to go for a coach?
Correct.
So do a quick survey with them, right? And that will give you an idea about what your pricing strategy should be,
right?
What your target audience should be,
right.
And in short, what your niche should be. But that niche identification is extremely, extremely important.
Right. Right. So I think that resolves the issue. I mean, that's like an actionable strategy to identify and start working towards your niche. Nitin, Bela has a question. How useful are online certifications in view of the coronavirus pandemic? Are these certifications valid?
So, Bella, one, are these certification valid? Technically, life coaching is not a legally regulated field. So any certification that you receive from any institute, okay, and this is across board worldwide, has no legal credibility. This includes certificates that we issue also.
Right.
Okay, because these are non-regulated fields. Now, what these certificates claim is that you have been trained from a particular institute which may be affiliated to certain association or may not be affiliated to certain associations. Right. Even those associations are private bodies. So there is no legality involved over there.
Correct.
Right. And if anyone wants to check what kind of competencies you have, right, they can connect back to the training institute and check what curriculums they are teaching to understand what competencies you have.
Correct.
Right. But apart from that, there is really no legal validity. So are these certifications valid? They are as valid as any other certifications and as invalid as any other certification.
Right.
Okay. And this includes even those organizations that claim that they are affiliated to international associations, right? For example, there is the International Coaching Federation. Then we are affiliated to International Coaching Register. There is the EMCC, which is European Council of, I don't remember the full form right now, but then they are there, right? So there are a lot of, then there is International Coaching Federation. Sorry, ICF I've spoken about. There is International Association of Coaches. So there are a lot of these coaching federations. But again, don't confuse them for legality. They cannot decide whether legally you can practice or not, because these are legally non-regulated fields. Now, are these useful? So there are two kinds of online certification that you will come across. One is which are pre-recorded, where people have recorded the entire training program and they've asked you to go through the training program. You attend the program and then they certify you as a coach.
Correct.
Right? They don't really, they may help you get a lot of information, but probably what you will get in this masterclass, in the 12-13 episodes that we have, will probably more than what you will get in pre-recorded courses.
Right.
Okay. So I wouldn't really recommend them. There are also online certifications which are instructor-led, right? Those certifications may be useful in terms of developing competencies, but you just have to check out which institute is offering it and what is the curriculum that they are focusing on. Again, instructor-led programs can be of two types. There are certain instructor-led programs which are like this, where there are questions and answers and probably some demos which will be done, right? I wouldn't really, again, consider that to be very, very effective. There are also instructor-led programs which are which focus on practice sessions. So for example, on Zoom, you can do breakout rooms. So through breakout rooms, you will then go and practice with one of your participants and so on. So if a coaching certificate, online coaching certification program is helping you practice, and there are supervisors who are supervising your practice sessions, and post the certification, they're also providing you support, then that online certification may be useful. So it just depends upon which institute you are doing the program with and what they're offering as a part of their coaching certification.
Correct.
We have a coaching certification program. We were earlier doing the soft skill coaching online. We are now transitioning. We have kind of restructured our cognitive hypnotic coaching level 1 in a way in which we can also incorporate certain hypnosis processes as a part of the program. And we are planning to launch that probably in the next couple of weeks, right? But then there's a lot of focus on practice sessions and so on. So as I said, it just depends on which institute you are doing that program from and what they're offering to you. Bella, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, she says yes. So basically look for a live training and where you're able to also practice what you learn. So I think those are two really important elements that you should look for. And what kind of post-training support is available, because when you start working with people, you'll need a lot of support, and you may have a lot of questions, or you may feel stuck in places, and you may want to go back to your trainer and ask for solutions or resolutions. So I think that is really, really important. Okay, Nitin, Pari has a question. So is hypnotherapy and psychotherapy the same when people call themselves hypnotherapists or psychotherapists?
So Pari, that's different. Actually, hypnotherapist is more about someone who's trained in hypnosis. Psychotherapist is a more broader term. You could have not done hypnosis, but you could probably have done other fields of therapy, and you may call yourself a psychotherapist. So psychotherapist is more broader. Hypnotherapist is more a specific term. I personally don't like using either, because the moment you say, probably psychotherapist is still fine, but when the moment you say I'm a hypnotherapist, you are not really focusing on the problem that the client is coming to you with. You are saying that no matter what, I'm going to use what I've learned in the hypnosis, right? And at times you may need to, what should I say, develop additional skills, which may not just be a part of hypnosis.
Right. Okay. Then Arna is asking, do we have access to the course videos anytime, even after the completion?
Yes. So Anna, with the courses that we conduct, yes. So all our courses are basically divided in 3 parts. There's the pre-level online modules, which is pre-recorded modules, where you get access to certain information, concepts, right? they are always available with you. Then we have the instructor-led training, either online or offline, where there is a lot of emphasis on practice session. In fact, the instructor-led training is all about demonstrations and practices. Those you practice. Probably now that we are doing it on Zoom and so on, we can record it, but I'm not really sure if they would be as useful in terms of recording. But every technique that you have practiced in the class is already pre-recorded and made available to you as a part of post-level online modules. And those techniques are always available with you, even after you've completed the course. So what it does is that you always have an access to them, which means that anytime you want to have a quick recap, you can have a recap. Second, whenever we are upgrading our courses, we also update the online modules to be in sync with the courses that we are running in the present moment, which then means that even if you've done a course with us, let's say 4 years back, and we have modified our courses in the last 4 years, in the online modules, you will always have the latest online modules available, which means you're always in sync with what we are doing now. You are never like left behind, even though you may have done courses with us years back.
Perfect. Perfect. Nitin, there is another question that has been asked to me. Does a coach need to be aware of yoga skills?
Do they need to be aware of it? The answer is no. If you're aware of it, can you make use of it? Well, if the client says that I also want to do a yoga and you also have information about yoga, that will be useful. But not all clients obviously would seek guidance with respect to yoga. So it's not necessary.
It's not necessary.
But I personally think any information is useful. Huh? So anything that you have learned, you may be able to make use of it somewhere or the other.
Perfect. Okay. So if anyone has, I think, asked all my questions. If anyone else has any other questions or you wish to add something, you can ask us now. In upcoming episodes, the next week we are going to talk about coaching models, and then further, going forward from there, we are also going to talk about various competencies that are essential to being a coach in future episodes. So if you have any questions on whatever we have discussed so far, if you have some feedback on so please go ahead and ask. Okay, Anna has a question: how to deal with difficult clients who are forced to come by their family?
Anna, generally that will not be a part of coaching, that will become a part of therapy, right? And probably that's a question that I can address for you later on. We can probably speak over a call or something.
Right.
For those of you who would like to have my contact number, if you would like to connect with me, provided you are looking at seeking more clarity about something, then you can. So I'm sharing the number on the chat, both
Right.
Here and on Facebook.
Okay.
Right. Any question that any of you have, please let us know so that we can also answer that.
Okay.
So quickly, if you could let us know what was your experience. So I'm going to continue with the Zoom chat right now. I'm going to put, we are going to go offline from Facebook. Okay. So I would like to thank all of you who are there on Facebook who joined us. If you have any questions that we have not answered, please leave them in the comments and we would take them up in the next session. I've already given you my number. If any of you would like to connect with me, please feel free to connect with me. Thank you.